Been in here busy.
Yeah, came and got it set up.
Okay. Okay.
So, yeah, I wrote that up for you.
Ooh.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you might want to step.
Yeah.
I wrote that up for you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Kind of figured do some things, get them out the way.
And your stamp,
Thank y'all.
and then when I leave tonight, I'm gonna take the gavel,
Okay,
so you'll have it for Wednesday.
I will not be here Wednesday.
You will not be, okay.
No, I've
Then
already talked with
Dr.
Tracy.
Burnett,
Yeah. I'm exhausting all of my
I'm sure, yeah.
abilities to make stuff and between my doctor's appointments and the meetings and I'm to be either but I've never had anything in concrete as far as what my
Okay.
What a way to go.
What was that?
Yeah, it's not bad.
No, it's nice.
Out there.
You lose the days of the
Okay.
week, huh?
All right.
That's pretty good.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's get started.
Okay.
I have a motion to go in the close.
So moved.
Second. Moving proper second, all in favor?
Bye.
All right, let's go in the close.
All right, let's go.
If everyone would please check your phones, make sure they're on silence. All right, could I have a motion to go to close?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion so carried, okay. Hey, Ken,
Where's the sheet?
unless it got tied up in the papers that I just had. Okay, here it is. Here it is, I found it. Okay. In pursuant to the Code of Virginia, the board has discussed personnel matters and student matters during closed session. Matters discussed in closed sessions have been added to the consent agenda and other parts of the agenda as action and information items. Members of the board, please certify that only lawful matters have been discussed in closed session. Members will respond by roll call.
Dr. Burnett,
Yes.
Mr. Harrell,
Yes.
Mrs. McMurtry,
Yes.
Mr. Reed,
Yes.
and Mrs. Socek.
Yes.
Okay. Next, we will stand for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. We have any additions or corrections to the agenda? Okay, being none, go ahead. Motion on that, please.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all right. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Public announcements, okay. February, Black History Month, VSBA Appreciation Month, February the 17th, end of interim grading period, February 20th, school division close and observance of President Day, March, February the 24th, interim grading report issued, March the 13th, school board meeting at St. Clair Walker at 6:30 p.m. Okay, Dr. Sykes, do we have any recognitions?
We do. One of which you just slightly mentioned. So the foundation of student success is year-long leadership and advocacy and support from our school board. We are proud of our division, and School Board Appreciation Month is a time to recognize and celebrate the accomplishments of our elected trustees. In Middlesex County Public Schools, school board members must develop policies and make tough decisions on complex educational and social issues impacting the entire community. They bear responsibility for an annual budget of over $21 million, 1,200 students, 230 employees, and 4 buildings, plus a central office. Too often we neglect to recognize the dedication and hard work of these men and women who represent us. So this evening, we thank you for all that you do for us. I do have just a presentation of a certificate. I will wait until the end and just give those to you all, so I'm not walking back, clunking across the stage. I also wanted to recognize that it is School Board Clerk Appreciation Week, and extend thank you from myself and the board to our school board clerk, Mrs. Kim Bagby, and to our deputy clerk, Mary Lloyd. They work to keep our board in order with meetings and such, and myself also answering questions. And I would be remiss if I didn't recognize and thank our student representative, Miss Gracie Winberry, who's a senior at Middlesex High School. Because Gracie, you don't just show up for our meetings, but you are an active and engaged participant. And we appreciate what you do for us. You're welcome.
Okay. Next we have educational highlights, Ms. Daniel Norris.
Good evening.
Good evening.
All right, I have several students as well as Mrs. Putney, who's here to join me tonight to share a little bit about Compass Academy and what we've done so far this year. For many of you that are not familiar with Compass Academy, we are a flexible learning program. I know our board is very familiar, but for our audience and those who are watching, need a clicker. So we are a non-traditional asynchronous approach to curriculum. What that looks like is students access Edgenuity, which is an online instructional platform to get their high school credits. We have a personalized pathway for learning. So every student meets with our teachers and our staff independently, and we try to figure out what's best for that individual student. So it's very student-centered. We have intentional and purposeful community engagement, as well as we include a lot of service learning within our program. So what this looks like for our students, they have access to over 400 aligned courses, that offer high quality instruction. We also have a smaller version of this at the high school in the Pathfinders elective, where students are able to access that same coursework there to do enrichment as well as extracurricular classes. We have daily in-person learning, support, and coaching. Students have access to post-secondary career and college tours. We do monthly STEAM activities with the Science Museum of Virginia. Just last Friday, they made Kalimba's musical instruments from scratch, bobby pins and wood. So it's a very hands-on piece. Through that, community service is a huge part of what we're doing. We work with the Crier Center, the Lions Club, the YMCA, and we're forever reaching out to build partnerships with our elementary school, as well as other community organizations where our students can get involved and give back to our community. And we really approach all of what we do with a design thinking, problem solving approach. What that looks like since 2020, I have run that program, and our graduation rates have looked like the following. We've had 17 out of 18 of our high school seniors graduate on time. We have 100% that are expected to graduate on time for this year. The smaller learning environment provides students it provides them a greater opportunity to really focus on what their needs are and minimize some of those outside distractions that can often have a negative influence and adversely affect engagement. Students have communicated that they found more relevance in their academic courses, and the extended learning beyond the classroom has contributed to their confidence. They have increased self-awareness and awareness of others, and they've become more engaged in school and their outside communities. So this is what it looks like. These are some of our non-traditional activities. And a lot of these are, like I said, student-centered, student-driven. We do everything from cooking and life skills to really getting out and celebrating their achievements. You can see we went to Surge, where Avery is tackling Miss Putney on the balance beam. But it's more than external motivations. These kids are working because they're intrinsically motivated to do so. And for anybody who's ever taken an online course, it takes a lot of diligence to sit there and persevere and work through. So they attend school regular hours, 8:15 to 3:15, and they are able to manage their own time and work at their own pace. They do set goals with Miss Putney and I, and they have to achieve those goals in order to stay on pace. But we often see them working above those goals or working at home just because they're interested in the subject or they want to get through something. Like I said, we've talked about community partnerships, has increased self-regulation. They're really focused on goal setting. I have students, and they might speak to that a little bit. They're taking that goal setting mentality outside of the classroom. They're applying it to their jobs, and that's what we want them to do. And within their day, they have a flexible schedule. So we don't have bells. They do, like I said, run a regular school day, but they decide when they want to eat lunch, when they want to have breakfast. It's run much like a college classroom environment or a college library. Students engage in their own learning. They're able to advocate and self-identify their own needs and their supports. So I don't know how many people work with teenagers on a regular basis, but to say, hey, I need this because of this, and I need it done this way is a huge achievement. They've become more connected with their peers and, like I said, more confident in themselves and their community. They've gained academic success, and they're exploring post-secondary options in workforce and college courses. With that, we started the year off, 45% of the students enrolled in Compass Academy were not on track to graduate their class. Currently, 100% of those students are on track for on-time graduation. We have 10th through 12th grade right now. 50% of my seniors have completed their requirements for graduation. 2 students are receiving a standard and are finished, almost finished, one of them, and then 1 advanced diploma. 83% of those students have completed college applications overall that are seniors, and 33% of my seniors are currently enrolled in courses with RCC as dual enrollment. As of February 2023, 11 students were totaling over 101 classes with 44 different courses and an average grade of an 82B. All of my seniors and juniors who needed to take the workplace readiness skills test took that in December, and they passed with a 100% pass rate. These are some of their comments. I'm not going to take the time to read all of them. We just asked them the other day to please give us some feedback on how they felt about the program. I guilted them. I said, the board doesn't want to hear from me. They want to hear from you. So they started here, and I'm sure they'll have a lot more to say, so I won't take up too much of that time. But we were really proud of and excited to see what they had written and their feelings about the program. Lastly, so they had totaled over 258 hours so far in community service. Now that's total every kid, every hour, but that averages to about 23 hours per kid for the year. So we're really proud. They're continuing to work and grow that number. I was actually just talking to Ms. Siegel at the elementary school about book fair coming up in March. And we're set to go to the Crier Center tomorrow, but they really care a lot about what they're doing. The last picture on the right was a community service project. We did sponsor a student where funds were donated to our program, and they supplied Christmas for over 3 students, our 3 children in our community. They weren't necessarily all students. So they budgeted, wrapped, packed, and delivered Christmas gifts, complete list for those 3 children. So they were able to celebrate a holiday. And some semester highlights. So at this time, I'm going to let Ms. Putney step up here and share a little bit, and as well as the students give their feedback and their opinions also. Thank you.
Good evening. For those of you who don't know me, I am Gina Putney, and I am the teacher at Compass Academy. This is my first year working at Compass. Prior to this, I was at West Point for 6 years, and I actually started my teaching career here in Middlesex. So I'm really glad to be back. I cannot express to you how happy I am that I took the chance to come back to Middlesex and work at Compass Academy. Over the past few years, I was feeling the unfortunately typical burnout feeling that many teachers have. I lost my energy and excitement in the classroom, and I was coming home to my family drained. I just felt like I was giving my all, but I was never giving enough at the same time. Compass Academy brought me back to my reason for becoming a teacher. I wish that every teacher had the opportunity for a program like Compass. Just over the course of this school year, I have developed strong relationships with every single one of our students. Due to our small size, I'm able to talk with every kid every day. Although we're focused on learning and building relationships with these students and acting as a role model, a motivator, and a supporter for their daily challenges. I became a teacher for these very reasons. Sure, the curriculum is important, but making a positive difference in their lives is my why. And I feel like I can fulfill that goal through Compass Academy. I am so thankful for this opportunity. Obviously, you don't want to hear from me, you want to hear from our students. So I'm going to pass the microphone to them and let them share about their experience at Compass.
Good evening, my name is Adrienne Austin. I'm a senior at Compass Academy. This is my 2nd year in the program, and it has changed me for the better. Compass provides me with a stable environment where I can comfortably be myself. Miss Norris and Miss Putney have both provided me with major support in helping me get on my feet, trying to find jobs, explore career paths, and scholarship opportunities. In this program, I can work independently while relying on my teacher and administrator for guidance when needed. Compass Academy has provided me the opportunity to graduate early with an advanced diploma while allowing me to take extra courses that pertain to the career I plan to pursue. Compass also helps us make connections in the community through volunteer services. We volunteer at the YMCA, MES, my favorite, the Crier Center, and on occasion, the Lions Club. Overall, Compass has been an amazing experience, and I'm so grateful that I've been able to take part in it. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Morgan Milby. I am a senior at Compass Academy. I first started at Compass during summer of 2021 doing summer school. While being at summer school, I realized a change in myself and how much harder I was working towards my work. After I finished summer school at Compass, I then went back to the high school. While being at the high school, I lacked keeping up my grades and was overall not happy with myself. I enrolled to Compass for good my junior year. Within the first couple of months of being here, it was immediate change. Since coming to Compass, my grades have improved tremendously. At Compass, I get to work at my own pace and in my own space, which helps me get a lot more done than usual. Learning on Edgenuity helps me stay organized because I do not have papers laying around and I have my own space to keep all of my things. It is also very helpful because I can go back and watch the instructions as many times as I need. I have created many friendships. I have also been involved with our community a lot throughout these 2 years. I can truly say if it was not for the Compass Academy, I don't know where I would be. Compass is not just school to me, it is like my second home. Not only has it helped me with school, but overall I have become a better person, and I truly believe Compass is the main thing that helped me be the person I am today.
I don't have something written like that, but last year, I was failing up to 4 classes because the high school environment was just not really agreeing with me. And I managed to graduate 2 weeks ago, I think, and with mostly all A's. So I don't think I would have been able to do that without Compass and without Miss Putney and Miss Norris, and they are absolutely the best, and they have helped me become very self-aware and aware of other people, and they have helped me grow a lot as a person, and I'm really grateful for them. And
Hi, I'm Avery Wyatt, and I also did not come prepared there, but Compass I came here, been here for a few months now, right? And I feel like I had a lot of things going on. I was in a really bad place mentally. And, as soon as I got in, these amazing teachers have made me feel like I am not just another student. They make me feel special. I don't feel like Compass it's a much great learning environment, but it's also, I think of these people as my family. And I have all good grades right now. I am taking a lot of classes, and they have put me on the right set to graduate. And I'm so happy to spend more time with these people. And I would not be here today without them. So.
Thank you guys very much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Okay. Next, we will open the floor to public comment. Let's see, we have a number of persons here this evening. And we're going to ask everyone, being we have so many that probably will speak during this public comment, each speaker will give his or her name and the district in which they reside for the record. Each speaker will be given one opportunity to speak and will be allowed 3 minutes to give their comments. All comments will be addressed to the school board. So say what you have to say, but please be respectful of the 3-minute time period because we have quite a few. Okay? So, public comment, the floor is now open.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Michael Hammond. I'm from the District of Jamaica. I want to applaud these young people who are Compass, definitely for what they're doing. But basically, my main reason for being here today is from a meeting that we basically about a week ago. We had a meeting. It was an emergency meeting, and we're still trying to figure out what answers are we going to get from that meeting, because I haven't got any type of call or any type of email or anything as a response of what's going to happen as far as that whole situation. Secondly, that's basically what we're asking for. I'm glad the conference came up here. That's what these kids are asking for, a safe environment. The same way that they felt, hey, I get along a lot better here at Compass, and somebody made that room for them in order to feel comfortable. Our kids are just asking for the same thing, to be able to feel safe, to be able to come to school and be educated the way that they're supposed to be educated. Something that didn't come up in the last meeting, which has come up in the paper, which I wanted to bring to light, which I know a lot of the school itself knows about it because it was brought up during football season. Not to say that a lot of people can't do, people can't do good, they do bad as well. But I'm trying to figure out, kind of puzzles me on how we got a gentleman that's leading a group of young men who was known during the season to drop racial slurs during the football season. Now, been reading this paper, we got some of the same individuals and kids. So we're trying to figure out where this behavior is coming from. But we got some of the same kids that are under this leadership now. Nothing was done about that then. We're talking about this is during football season. Numerous kids was there, numerous parents brought it up. Nothing was done. Yet this man is leading kids that are basically in the same situation that we're talking about last week. What was it, last week or 2 weeks ago? January 9th. So I'm just trying to figure out, what are we doing? Are we elevating people for doing wrong now? We're putting them in positions and letting them lead our children? I just don't understand it. And if I can get some answers, it would be great. Because like I said, when Wayne Jesse was the chair, he was also the district, the leader of a Jamaica district. We called about, what, it was a dump that he was planning on putting in Jamaica? My wife. Yeah, it was a dump. Wayne Jesse called me that night to ensure me that this wasn't going to happen. He was going to fight for this, and he was going to fight for that. I've heard nothing. It's been 2 weeks. All we ask for is answers. I said, I know it's great teachers. Like I said, none of this stuff is learned. Some of the stuff is learned at home, but we're not pointing no fingers at the school or the school board or any of that type of situation. I had great teachers. Miss I, when I was, well, excuse me, Miss Merchant, when I was in school, excellent teacher. But we got to hold each other accountable. And from what I see in the paper, we're elevating people in positions who have already been in trouble in the school system to lead our children. That just don't work for me. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Melody Jones, and tonight I'm speaking on behalf of a situation with racial comments and racial threats made to myself and other Black students at St. Clair Walker. The first incident took place on January 19th, 2023, and since then it has escalated into things such as physical altercation. There was a group chat with several students from St. Clair Walker where normally it's fine, everyone just talks, but there were 2 students in particular who decided to call me and some of my other Black friends N-words, monkeys, slaves, and send KKK memes saying they were going to shoot us, they would kill us and hang us. This behavior continued, and it was happening last year as well. Since then, we've been called watermelon munchers at school. We've been called N-words in multiple classes, and just today we were told that we look like barbecue, and the student openly admitted that he was racist. All of us feel as though that there is nothing being done about the situation, and we're very frustrated. So I'm here just speaking on it because I want something to change. I shouldn't have to come to school every day feeling uncomfortable and feeling as though that I have a target on my back. These students told me that they would kill me. They said they would shoot me and that they would be at the school. Every single day that I come to school, I think maybe today is going to be the day that happens. And that's not normal. Something needs to happen now, and I'm going to continue to speak up until something does. Thank you.
Good evening. As you all know, my name is Dawn Moore, and tonight I am speaking on behalf of the NAACP. Ms. Melanie has come to us, and I need you to know the vision statement for the NAACP, the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, is to ensure a society which all individuals have equal rights and there is no racial hatred or racial discrimination. Our principles are to ensure the political, educational, social, and economic equality of all citizens. Racism in the school has serious consequences, from fueling the school to prison pipeline, which our community knows nothing about, starting at our Commonwealth Attorney's office, to traumatizing children of color. Black students are 3 times more likely to be suspended or expelled than their white peers, according to the U.S. Department of Education. According to the Middlesex County School Code of Conduct, I do not see race next to the behavior codes. So race should not be a factor in the consequences. However, I do see behaviors that impede the academic process of the students or of other students. Relationship behaviors create a negative relationship between 2 or more members of the school community. No physical harm at that point. Behaviors endanger self or others. These behaviors endanger the health, safety, or welfare, either the student or other school community members. If we have any student afraid or stressed about coming to school, there is a problem. There are alternatives for disruptive students. Any student who is being bullied should not further be punished by having to be removed from the class or continue to attend school and have to constantly look over their shoulder. We have now created more issues for the victim. According to the Code of Conduct, disruptive behavior means a violation of school board policy or the standards of student conduct used by the superintendent pursuant to policy JFC student conduct that interrupts or obstructs the learning environment. I think that behavior interrupts and obstructs. Not one time did I find a clear understanding of what the consequences for these actions will be. I did see a lot of maybe. So I can interpret that as maybe no consequences. I also do not believe any student engaged in derogatory comments in the school or at home should be rewarded, especially when you have it in black and white. After seeing the video of the program at St. Clair Walker on the news, in my mind, it was already tainted due to the children making racial derogatory remarks being rewarded by being taken on a field trip for good behavior. This may be a good program, but the expectations may need to be reevaluated. As the nation's racial demographic shifts, the disparities pose serious risks to our future. Students in Middlesex County need to be educated past the Virginia Board of Education standards. This issue did not happen overnight, and it will not be fixed overnight, but the escalation did happen overnight, and it needs to be fixed now. As I've stated before, maybe you need to interrupt the parent's day due to their child's behavior and not interrupt the victim.
My name is Steph. Sorry.
My name is Stephanie Cole. I'm the mother of Melody Jones. And I'm also a St. Clair Walker graduate and a Middlesex High School graduate. I would also like to mention that my daughter was the vice president of St. Clair Walker in 6th grade. And she was elected in 7th grade to be the president of the middle school before she was even allowed. She is currently the president of St. Clair Walker. I'm speaking on behalf of her and a few other students. On January 19th, 2023, racial threats were made towards my daughter and a few other 7th grade students in a Snapchat group chat. Hateful memes were sent to Black children with hurtful, threatening comments like, "I love Black people when hanging from trees. I need more cotton pickers like you. Republicans aren't racist. Then why don't they support the move to label these people domestic terrorists? Excuses 1, 2, and 3. Believe women with Emmett Till pictured in the back. Remember when that mob believed all women and lynched Emmett Till? Pepper Ridge Farms remembers. MLK had a dream and so did Emmett Till, and also kill all Black people. Direct threats were made like kill all monkeys. I'll shoot that N-word. It is a gunshot and I'm a part of the KKK. I ain't no B word, a child giving their address, and I effing will shoot your A. A call was made to my 13-year-old daughter from a high school student who verbally threatened that he would drive his brother to school to beat her up the morning of January 20th, 2023. And he would also have people beat her up. He also called her the N-word and made repetitive hateful threats towards her. 2 days prior to this altercation in class, there were boys that drew pictures of Black babies on paper. They had baby shower babies. They were painting them Black in school and asked if my daughter would be one of their monkeys. She reported this to myself and her teachers, and I actually told her to stay away and next time record it, because these same 2 boys in the Snapchat group chat this year also called her the N-word last year. I was made aware of the altercation that night of January 19th, and I immediately got off of work at 10 p.m. and drove my daughter to the police department. A police report was given to my daughter by Deputy Carver, and I was advised to file it with an SRO at St. Clair Walker, Deputy Rainey, the following morning. The morning of January 20th, 2023, I called the school board and spoke with Tracy Seitz and also emailed her the memes and Snapchat comments, as well as SCW Principal Ms. Sanders. The morning of January 20th, 2023, I had a meeting with SRO Deputy Rainey, my daughters, and my mother, and we were told, being that this happened outside of school, it was not a school matter, and I was advised by Deputy Rainey to file the police report at the police department and not with her. Although Deputy Carver, advised me to file it with the deputy of the school. I was then sent to the police department just to be sent back to St. Clair Walker to file the police report. After arriving back to St. Clair Walker, me and my children were met in the middle of the sidewalk by Deputy Rainey and Deputy Randall. And we were told to have my daughter go back home to file the report. And a deputy would pick it up from her there. That's 4 different trips. I asked why we were being sent back and forth and stated I would like for her to file it there with them, being that I had to work an overnight shift from 10 p.m. to 6 in the morning, and this was a more concerning matter for me. We stood in the cold for about 5 minutes waiting for Deputy Rainey to come out of the school with the paperwork. My daughter sat in the car to fill it out and walked back into the building and back out with a copy of the report. On January 23rd, which was the following Monday, I kept my children home and contacted the school for updates. I was told I would get a call back from the principal, and I never received a call back from her. On the same day, January 23rd, I received a call back from Deputy Rainey, and I was told that another officer was handling the investigation. As I expressed frustration and fear, I was told that it was a courtesy call, and if I wasn't going to listen to her, that she would hang up on me because she did not have to call me, and that an officer would contact me sometime later on that night. I was contacted by a male officer that night who told me he was not handling the investigation either, that Deputy Randall was, and I could contact her or she would be contacting me with details. I got no return calls for days after this. I contacted the NAACP to file a complaint and for advice and help for some type of peace and understanding, mainly for the safety of my children and other children involved. On Thursday, February 2nd, 2023, another racial altercation occurred at school with two different students making racial comments. After calling the office, I finally got a return call from the principal, although I tried multiple times. This is from January 19th all the way till February 2nd. I had never heard from the principal or the superintendent. The same two students that made racial comments and threats went on a field trip with a group called Boys to Men for good behavior throughout the quarter. I had a meeting with the principal on February 6, 2023 about the altercation, as well as Ms. Seitz and my daughter being uncomfortable in school. Continued stares and racial comments made. One student even chose to use Emmett Till for a Black History Month project out of sarcasm, and I was advised that it would be hard to change classes, but seating changes would be made since one student had remained directly behind my child in history class for days. I was also told that there was an investigation, but since there wasn't a shooting that day, that there was no further concerns. No seating changes have been made till this day, and I was advised by my daughter days later of this. On February 10th, 2023, I requested I have a meeting with one of the students' parents, the principal and my daughter's grandmother, and he gave, although the father gave me some comfort in regards to one of the children not learning this behavior at home and being very understanding and willing to have his child's classes moved for my daughter's comfortability, I'm still worried when I drop her off at school every morning. She usually rides the bus, but it's more comfortable for me to drop all four of my children off and watch them walk into the building, being that a high school student said he would be dropping his brother off in the morning so that he could beat her up. On February 10th, 2023, my daughter was in a physical altercation at school with another 7th grade female. This female felt as though two other students, not the same ones from the beginning, were suspended because they were calling racial comments, calling them the N-word, watermelon muncher, so they got suspended from school. She felt as though it was their fault. She continued to say they got on her nerves and that they should stop pulling the race card. So my daughter asked her to say it to her face, and she did. She put her hands on her, which caused my daughter to push her back. My daughter was going to be sent to the FAR room, but instead they said, you know, like a pot of water, if you put it on the stove, it's gonna heat up. Every day since this, she's been dealing with stares and racial comments, so they actually let her go home for the weekend and come back to school Monday morning. I was advised that the head of the police department did not have the police report, and after speaking with the witness attorney, she did not have it either. Why wasn't it filed, and why isn't this matter being taken seriously? My daughter has cried in school in front of the principal and said she has felt like a target multiple times. Every time she comes to school in the morning with these same children, she doesn't know if they're going to do something to her. I was told that it's not a direct threat to the school, that it's something that should be handled by the law, yet there's nothing being handled, and my daughter's police report wasn't filed, although I have copies of it. And these children are in school with her every day. And I believe that high school student saying that he would be in school that morning to beat her up was a direct threat to the school. And being that these students are all in school together and are telling these kids that they're going to shoot them and kill them, that's a threat. Especially being that there was a 6-year-old boy in Newport News that was making the same threats, and he actually attempted it. I really am uncomfortable sending my daughter to school, but as I said before, she's the president, she's an honor roll student, she loves school, and I'm trying to keep things as normal as possible. But every day I send her there, I'm unsure of what's going to happen because she's in the same vicinity as these children, as well as the other kids. And if something did happen, everybody is a target, not just them. So I would please really like to find some answers. And I've tried to contact everyone and do these things the right way, and still nothing. I'm still a worried parent.
Good evening. My name is Latasha Shackelford. I have students in all all the schools in the in Middlesex. To piggyback off of Stephanie, my son was one at the middle school who was also one that was called the N-word, was told that KKK in a group chat message, told him that they were going to shoot him, called him monkeys, said that they had guns. To my understanding, they even posted a picture or some sort of a gun. My question is this: yes, we don't have gun violence in the school, but what's the difference in racial comments? It still has power. There is power by the things that you say out of your mouth, just like a gun. What is the difference, right? We have a teacher whose sister got shot in Newport by a 6-year-old in the school because he had a gun. So you're going to tell me, yes, the gun has power because it shoots, but the words have power too because it also shoots. It causes damage to a person. It can change them. It can mold them and shape them into something that they don't want to be. At the end of the day, their goal as children is to be able to be children and to be educated and to be able to have every opportunity like everyone else. Like it said back in the day, it takes a whole village to raise one child. We are leaving many children behind right now by not being able to be that village and to be able to be that voice for them when they can't be. Because yes, we have middle schoolers, but it starts in the elementary school too. There has been racism in the elementary school. So what happens to those young students that don't have the ability to voice their concerns like they should? Like to be able to reach out to their mother and say, Mom, this is what's going on, or Dad, this is what's going on. It shouldn't be division. There is no division. Martin Luther King fought for this very same reason, for unity. All these Black people, white people, everyone came together. There is no color when it comes to people. Because at the end of the day, every knee shall bow and every tongue will confess. And God is coming back. He don't care what your color of your skin looks like. It's all about your heart. And if your heart is not right, then how can you say that we can engage properly to save this nation, to save our county, to save these children who they didn't ask to be here. They didn't say, hey, I want to be born today. They didn't say, hey, I want to live this opportunity, live this life, and to be able to be questioned every time a Black young man goes out and anywhere in this United States of America or anywhere. They have to worry about making sure that their hands is where it's supposed to be. They got to constantly watch over their shoulders. Just like a Black person like myself, a female, we don't have it easy. And I'm not saying everybody against, but there has been targets on these young children's lives. Where's their opportunity? Where's their shot? We're all older. You guys are older. We are older than them. We've graduated. We've been through this. Where is it at? Our children deserve a chance.
Can we just remind you to state your district? Thank you.
Robert Jackson. Man, let me start by saying that none of my kids attended school here. I was fortunate because if I had, I probably would be one of your worst antagonists. I'm here this evening to speak on several issues: threat, cyberbullying, stress, learning, and patterns. The definition of a true threat is a statement that is meant to be frightened or intimidated one or more specific persons. Cyberbullying is defined as using technology like emails, mobile phones, chat rooms, or networking sites to hurt someone by sending harmful messages, pictures, or comments. If the school has a bullying policy in place, why is it not being enforced? I have spoken to several parents and was advised that there is a serious issue at this school with bullying in the classrooms. I understand that this has been an ongoing issue for quite some time now. I also understand that several white boys are using derogatory comments directly at Black students in front of teachers, and they are doing absolutely nothing to stop it. When is enough enough? People of color know that if the role had been reversed, in which the Black kids were bullying white kids, some type of punishment would have been handed down, or someone would have been held accountable by now. Since nothing has been done to my knowledge, I see this as being a sort of systemic racism. People of color know that this exists, and this issue here at SCW is a typical example. This issue has become a personal matter for me. Enough time has elapsed to send a message to Black students at SCW. Doesn't care a damn. It is time for this issue be taken to the next level by the NAACP. I don't think this little county on this type of action or this type of information exposed, then again, it might be a good thing to let others know what type of school system this county really have. School districts have the legal obligation to protect students from bullying and to address these issues when it occurs. When this sort of thing happening to a student, it brings on post-traumatic stress, anxiety, depression, lack of self-esteem, gastric issues, and the ability to learn is reduced. It has been brought to my attention that the principal, assistant principal, some teachers, and even a superintendent has done nothing to stop this bullying issue. It is a school responsibility to provide a safe and a healthy environment when students are in their care during school hours. Next, I questioned the sheriff's office. In the report that was submitted on January 20, 2023, in the report that was submitted on January 20, 2023, shooting and hanging was mentioned. These statements are also considered racial statements. Why haven't they been investigated by our sheriff's office? Here again is a typical example of systematic racism. Thank you very much.
Good evening. I do want to preface this by saying I am speaking on behalf of myself. To the chair of the board and the members thereof and all of those present. Good evening. My name is Lamar Gresham. I'm a product of Middlesex County Public School System, graduating in 2003. I'm also a former basketball and baseball coach, both at the varsity and JV levels. For 3 years, I was a paraprofessional here at St. Clair Walker Middle School. I've been gone for 3 years this summer, but to this day, I am consistently asked about my return to the classroom. I make these points hoping to give credibility to what I shall say hereafter. I find it rather disheartening that in the year of our Lord 2023, we are still struggling with race-related issues amongst our citizens and even within our school system. These revelations are nothing new, as they were true during my time as a student here in Middlesex. I have seen racism between students, faculty, and staff, as well as administrators. It is unfortunate that so many choose not to see the racism for what it is, but will call it everything except what it is. The reality is this: it has existed, it still exists, and will continue to exist unless proper action against the matter is taken. At this very moment, I am missing much valuable class time as I am pursuing my master's degree in theology, but I knew how imperative it was for me to appear before you tonight. I am here tonight because apparently children do not have the right to enjoy a peaceful day of education within our school system. I am here tonight because apparently matters have to be at their absolute worst before actions can be taken.
I am here tonight because apparently rules are only enforced at the discretion of administrators depending on the who involved and the what. Now, if you search the records, you will find that lesser disruptions have caused some students to be sent home, suspended, or removed from athletic teams. One of the major issues here is that it appears that the rules do not apply to all people, and in many cases, they don't. Now, I do understand that certain situations require being approached from different angles, as some situations are more sensitive than others. I do understand that not all situations are created equal. However, when the education of our children is being disrupted by any kind of cruelty to the point that those children no longer wish to come to school, it is at this point that action must be taken against the perpetrator or perpetrators. Evil should not be rewarded by allowing them to carry on with life business as usual. Now, I will note that if the student involved was James Caden Lee Gresham, who happens to be my own son, my demeanor tonight would be very different. But let it be known to all that have an ear to hear, we will not stand for any type of racism, nor will we stand for any type of injustice. And we surely will not be quiet in our approach to these matters. We have fought too long and too hard to be treated as equals, and we will not have the hands of time turned backwards on us. Let it be noted that we expect to see necessary changes and actions made, and we expect it in a timely manner. Thank you for your time, and I look forward to hearing from you.
Hi, I'm Avery Wyatt, as I said earlier. I was a victim of bullying for just for being transgender, and I'm not here to make this about me because I was put into Compass and that helped me learn, but it breaks my heart to hear that these people are being treated differently because of their race. I have cousins that are mixed and I have family that's Black, and I would never want them to be treated like this. It breaks my heart to hear what these people are saying and that nothing is being done about it.
My name is Ashley. I'm Avery Wyatt's mom. Avery Wyatt was a recipient of an NAACP award when she finished her 8th grade year at St. Clair Walker. We moved here to take care of my elderly father without warning. And I took her from the Outer Banks, where it was a place where everyone was accepted. We never had these problems. And I brought her here, never knowing it was going to be an issue. And she came out and she was herself, and she was completely comfortable in her own skin. And a lot of people accepted her, but a lot of people don't. And I will not let anybody tell her she can't be who she is. And I don't think it's fair for anybody to tell them that something's wrong with them or somebody can't be who that they want to be. I think it's almost disgusting, and there's no excuse for somebody not to stand up and say something and justice not to be served, because us as parents, like everyone has said previously, we send our kids to public school to get an education. My daughter has every right to go and get the education. She should not be scared to go to school. She's been removed from school. She's been in altercations where she's been stood up over where teachers did nothing. I've been given excuses of, oh, it's not our fault. We're doing everything our policy will let us do. It's from home. When we tell these students and tell the parents things that are going on in the school and they go home, other things are being said to them, and that's out of our control. Like someone said earlier, the parents need to be disrupted. I felt that. Those parents need to be disrupted. Somebody needs to open their eyes. I've made multiple suggestions. When was the last time there was a speaker brought in? A speaker that stood up in front of all of these students and made them aware of how serious these things are. How about bringing a student's parent, a student that was lost to any kind of crime that had to do with a hate crime, drunk driving, someone in that nature, but lost their own child, speak to a group of children and their parents, make their parents come, make it a nighttime event like we're here right now. I would love to see this auditorium filled with people to watch somebody in front of them instead of on a TV screen or in a classroom. And when these children snicker and think it's funny, I suggest calling them out, making them stand up and say, what's so funny? Because it's not a joke. She is completely different 3 months ago, when she went to Compass, she was taken out of high school. She shouldn't be the one taken out of high school. It's not her fault. She was a cheerleader. She was on the soccer team. She loved that school. And now she had to be taken out, and she didn't do anything wrong. It's not fair. My kid is one of the most sweetest people. She will sit at a table with someone who's sitting by themselves because nobody else will sit with them. She will help anybody that needs help, no matter what they look like or where they came from. And it's just sickening to me that nobody is helping. Nobody's standing up and saying anything from this side of the stage. Only us. We're the only ones standing up and trying to do something about it. And nobody's answering our questions. Nobody's answering our phone calls. Nobody's answering our emails, and nobody's doing any justice where we needed justice the most. And I think it's ridiculous. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Vince Carter, and I'm only here as a concerned citizen because this community can do a lot better, but also your teachers, your leaders or whatever, you are the leaders of this county. And you must do what needs to be done to protect not only Black students, but also white students, all students, no matter what nationality they are. This is a community, and we are proud of this community. And you as leaders, teachers are leaders, and they must take that role as leaders to make sure that what is done in the school system, in the community or wherever, that you are a leader and you're leading in the right direction, the direction that makes all people, no matter what color, race, creed, or whatever they are, that they are just as important in America as anywhere else. This is Middlesex County, and I'm proud to be from Middlesex County. But I'll tell you what, I'm getting a little disheartened by basically what's going on in a county that I love, that I was born and raised in. And you as leaders, school board, teachers, no matter what your position are, you must also be leaders, and leaders in the right direction that are good for not only this county, but for this country. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is James Bagby. I'm hearing a lot of stuff going on here tonight, but sometimes you got to go back to history. I was born in the 40s. What y'all don't know is a lot of stuff went on in my time coming up. Segregation, because I went to the Sinclair Walker and I graduated from, we was a segregated school, but we didn't have that kind of trouble in our segregated school because we were disciplined if we did. We were disciplined at school, and then we were disciplined when we went home. But I'm gonna tell you a little history. When we was growing up, in my time, we went to the restaurant. You hate to use the white word, so you went to the Caucasian restaurant. You had to go around the back. You get your food. You had to go to a separate bathroom. And that was even when I went on my job at the shipyard. You know, they just start taking the sign down, Black only. Y'all young people don't know none of this. But some of the older people up there know some of this. But why are we having all this trouble now? Because we are not disciplining our children at home. I mean, I'm not gonna say this to Black, but Black and white girls. These young white people don't know nothing but no the Black people did in their time, the nigger word. I used to walk the road and the white guys come by in the car and call us a nigger. And because we didn't have no car, we were walking where we could go on. That wasn't right. So why are we having this trouble now? y'all need to get it right now. Because you see what's going on in the school, you see what's going on in the world. You got to put a stop to it. These children, they children, they don't know they were words back in the 50s and 60s. They weren't even born. So who are we to let them get away with it? Stop it now. You need to stop it now. It's not right.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Henry Easton. I live in the Urbana area. I'm here this evening because of something I've never experienced before. It's when your neighbors and people come to you and tell you about these situations that's going on, enough to irritate you to make you come out. So I'm coming out tonight just to appeal to parents, school board members, and those who are just in the community who may not even know about a lot of the parents that have students here in this community. But I would like to just leave a couple of words for you that it will help, I think, both parents and board members. And the first thing I want to say is that the first teacher that every student has is that of a parent. The parent may be good or they may be bad. But if you are a bad parent, try to do something to be improving. Take some love for each other. And we all in this room, and those students who may have used slurring words, it shows that there is a lack of love. We need love. There was a song, what the world needs is love. We need to have some love in things. And when you have love, you don't have any hatred in your heart. You don't have any animosity. And I'm asking parents, board members, and anyone else, take a moment to try and negotiate. And as the gentleman who was here before me, we went to school together too. There was a settling of things at one time. You as parents, if you're having trouble, somebody's bothering your kids, okay, you do need to address it. And we're seeing things around the country. Do we want to have out and out war because we simply don't want to be nice? Things are escalating. We never heard of students shooting teachers and other students. We need to nip it in the bud now. Let's negotiate. If you have a problem, let's mention it and bring it to the proper authorities. And we need to question the authorities. If they aren't doing the job, they need to start doing it before something gets further out of hand. So I urge you, parents and board members, we need to start at home. Neighbors need to come and need to tell each other and help grow as a community. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is David Gresham, and I'm speaking on behalf of Game Changers. I've listened, I came in a little late, so I missed some of it. But what I've heard, is very disturbing. And if you all aren't disturbed, I'm really concerned. Because that young lady that got up here and spoke about the fear she has for her child should scare each one of you. You should be afraid. Because if they want to come and get her child, a bullet has no name on it. So anyone can be hit. That's a real threat. And we know in 2023, that's a reality. What do we see on the news? school shootings. Sometimes for no reason that they can figure out, and sometimes for reasons they can. And I would think this would be a reason that you could figure out why. So I want to address the bullying. I've heard from parents in the elementary school, the middle school, and the high school about kids being bullied. And it's kind of brushed off. It's like, oh, they annoy everybody. Like they're equal opportunity bullying, so it's okay. Diversity. Middlesex County does not have enough diversity in this school system. And it does not just affect the Black children. It also teaches the white children that the stereotypes that they hear are true. You need to think about that when you start hiring people. It's not just for Black people when you hire people of different nationalities. It's for everybody to understand that all people are created equal. Sorry, my phone went out on me. SRO training and responsibilities. I have no clue what they are. And when I've asked questions, nobody's really clear on it. Who are they accountable to? What are their responsibilities? Who chastises them? Where do they get their marching orders? Is it the school or is it the sheriff's office? We don't hear about that. So we don't know who's accountable. And right now, accountability is a big problem because everybody's passing the buck back and forth, pointing fingers. It's the parents, it's the sheriff, it's the school board. Who is it? Racist language and comments that have not been addressed. I've been before this board 2 years ago about racist comments. I spoke about diversity training. I even handed some paperwork in that taught about diversity training for the staff. And here we are 2 years later and still having the same problems, only magnified. Assembly, like the young lady said, why don't you have assemblies? You know, I graduated in 1974 in New York City, and we had assemblies. We had people that came and spoke. In 1970, in my high school, we had security guards at the door, but we never had this mess that we're having now in Middlesex County. And that was over 50 years ago. What are we doing? Policies and procedures. There does not seem to be a clear understanding of what the policies and procedures are. If there is a threat, what a threat is, who's responsible, and there seems to be no connection between the sheriff's office and the school because that young lady had to run back and forth, back and forth. Everybody's saying it's the other one's problem, when it's really everybody's problem. Open and clear communication. We don't have any. You guys, we come to the board meeting and wait a minute, let me say one thing. My board representative, Mr. Burnett, called me on the phone and invited me to have a conversation with him. That's the first time I've had a board member address me and call me personally about a problem that I spoke about in open forum. That's a problem because we come here, we have questions, we never get answers. There's no clear communication between us. It's like it's us against you. That's what it feels like. Because in these meetings, you can't come talk to us. So why don't we have meetings where we can ask a question and get an answer? Is that a problem? And finally, I have 3 children that graduated from Middlesex County schools. There were some problems back then. I was fortunate. I went to school in New York City. Everybody has different ideas about New York, but let me tell you something. I grew up in a multiracial neighborhood. We did not have these problems. I had Italian, Jewish, Puerto Rican, Jamaican, and Black people in my community, in my school. And even though my school was targeted as being troublesome school, we never had an issue. Nothing like this, never. In my 67 years, I thought this part would be over. But sadly, I'm mistaken. So everybody needs to think and consider and come up with a real plan of action, and then communicate that with the community so that we're all on the same page, so that we know who's accountable for what, and that our children can be safe. Thank you.
Mike Mez, Harmony Grove. It's kind of deja vu all over again. Monday, January the 30th, I saw a lot of people writing notes. Good. But it's been 24 days since this incident. And what a word to call it, incident. It's more than an incident. It's awful. No word. Papers report, the report in the paper didn't even use the word race. People are afraid of using the word race, racism, when that's what it is. Everybody's so afraid of talking about it. Why is that? Even the word race is a racist word. It was come up like 400, 500, 600 years ago by a bunch of white men. And they listed all the races. And of course, the white race was on top. There wasn't any such thing as race before that. Sure, there was bias and there was hatred, but this race was supposed to be scientific because these were the intellectuals. And what is it? We're stuck with it now. We're the black race, we're the white race. No, but we're stuck with it. That's how we think. Now, as a white person, well, I got spotches on my hand, my arm. I'm not really white, but I'm called white. So as a white person, I'm not subject to this racism. I might have been insulted, I might have been taunted. Peanuts. So what do we know, us white folk? Not a whole lot about this. We need to listen. We need to see. We need to feel. We need to pay attention because we're blind to it. We all have blind spots. And so you might be thinking, well, we're impartial. People here with all the melanin, the pigment, they don't believe so. Why is that? Because of history. And why are we at this time any different? We need to look in the mirror and we need to admit to ourselves that we don't know what we don't know. The thing is, we have to open our hearts as well as our minds. The response to this, where was the heart? Where was the concern for the children that were threatened? And they were threatened. This direct threat, that sounds like something the law enforcement uses when they have to put in the SWAT team or something. There's no direct threat. We don't need to send in the SWAT team. There was a threat. People were threatened. And there's laws against that. If you fear for bodily harm, if you are insulted and used and insulted and dehumanized, and that was all the language there, that is illegal for a juvenile as well. the school system has a responsibility to stand up for their students. So, well, thank you for your time.
My name is Cynthia Beverly. I live in the Hartfield area. And my first statement is, we're sick and tired of being sick and tired. I mean, we've been going through this. I went through this 11 years ago with my daughter, Alexis Beverly, the same thing as Melanie, the threats. I'm gonna kill you. I'm gonna hang blacks from a tree. I went to the school district, and I'm not gonna put it on Miss Sykes because she was not the superintendent. I'm not putting it on Elliot Reed. He was not the school board chairperson. But I went through the same thing, and it's been 11 years and we're still going through it. Had to go through the sheriff department. Nothing was done. Was told that the child First Amendment rights, if they want to say these things, they had the right to say it. But what about our civil rights? And so we had to contact the Department of Justice to get ready to come down to handle this situation. And it's ridiculous that we're going through this. This is 2023. But what happened? The superintendent resigned. The two principals at the high school also resigned. We don't want people to resign. We just want people to do their job, protect these kids. We're not trying to make people lose their jobs, but let it be what it be. But I do want to say that this is very serious. I've heard from some of the students, I'm letting you all know right here tonight, they are saying if nothing's happened, they want to do a student walkout. Now, if that's what it needs to be, I'm just backing up. These students, they're sick and tired of this. Now, this is going to take us back to the 50s and 60s, where Dr. King them had to march to get something done. They had to march, they had to protest, they had to do sit-ins. Now, these students in Middlesex County are talking about a walkout to protest. You know what shame and embarrassment that will bring to Middlesex County? And they talk about getting the news people here to broadcast it live. Come on, what are we doing here? What are we doing? I don't think anybody on this panel and us here want to see this happen in Middlesex County. That the news people had to come while these students walked out of school one day. They're tired. They're tired. We are tired as parents. I don't have a child in the school system. But Melanie Jones was one of my kids at my daycare when she was 3 years old. This child is 13. So I know her character. But now I'm speaking for Blacks, same way as the mom who Caucasian spoke about her child. This stuff's been going on in this county. We don't get answers. Parents are trying to get answers. We know y'all don't respond now. I know I've been up this way before. I know there's no response, but you have got to do something. You have got to do something. We all see the news. We know kids, they get bullied and bullied till they get tired. What do? They come to school and take revenge out on everybody. Do y'all want this blood on your hand if something like this should happen in this county? I don't think so. I really don't think so. But people are serious. This is serious business here now. These kids deserve a right to go to school, get taught, get respected, get what everybody else is getting. They should not be scared. Melanie's sister is scared to go to school. She calls her mother every day. Her mom got to check on her. Come on now. This sixth grader shouldn't be scared to go to school because what's happening to her sister? Now the little sister that's 4 and the brother that's 6 of Melanie is also, Mom, I'm scared to go to school. Is Melanie okay today? This 4-year-old daughter should not be worried about her sister. She's 4 years old, give me 5. She should be having fun in school. Now, sister, okay, mommy, check on my sister. So it's really getting to a point. Something needs to be done in this county. Right?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Bob Sutherland. I pastor a church in the county. I live in the county. I went to the Middlesex schools. I went to the high school the first year of integration. And I made out fine. I made out fine. I didn't have to deal with as much as I'm hearing these young people and these parents dealing with now. So my heart is broken because I love this county and I love the people in this county, and I have friends of all races in the county. It saddens me that we're having a meeting tonight and having these discussions. It saddens me that we are further behind now than we were the first year of integration. Please do what you can as a school board to make this situation go away. Because I'm 70 years old in a few months. And these kids are dealing with what I didn't have to deal with. I was at the high school the first year of integration. You'd have thought I would have had more people calling me the N-word and this, that, and the other the first year of integration. You would have thought that I would have had to deal with more than they're dealing with, and I didn't. So that says to me that we need to work on some things in our county. And we need to do it for the sake of our county, because we have a wonderful county. We have a wonderful county. There are a lot of wonderful people in this county. Thank you. Thank you, Elliot. We'll be here all night.
Good evening. My name is Shanae Hammond. I'm from the Jamaica district. I stood up because it seemed like pretty much everyone is done saying what they have to say. So I kind of wanted to close it out. I just wanted to let y'all know that this really breaks my heart. I don't know if y'all been looking at me the whole time. I know everyone in the back cannot see me because I'm sitting in the front. I have been crying this whole meeting. The inside of me is broken. To hear this girl have to stand up and read her story, that really broke me. It broke me. I had to walk out. To hear her mother. These kids should not be afraid to go to school. They should not have to be looking over their shoulder. They should not have to worry if they go to school in the morning, are they going to return home? Us as parents, we should not have to worry about getting a phone call. If anything happens, the school is going to be on a lockdown. We're all going to be in the parking lot. We're not going to be able to get in to get the children that may be safe. Who's going to protect these kids? We've seen on the news, you have police officers that are afraid to protect the kids. They were afraid to get to the shooter. Is Middlesex going to be the same thing? We keep hearing safety is number one, but y'all need to prove it. Action speaks louder than words.
So he can empathize with his own people. And all we are asking you guys for is to be able to empathize with our situation. If Jesus can do it, I'm gonna say that everybody can do it. But we need to make sure that we are trying to live a righteous life the way that he did. Because basically we are living in grace. Jesus is from a lot of vehicles. Now, we gotta get it together. These children, I've been mentoring these kids of all races. You know, I've been in this. They don't have a race. And And I don't want to see nothing happen. So, thank you.
Well, I thank each of you for coming out and speaking your piece this evening. And we don't have a choice. Things have been going on for 50, 60 years. People have been trying to come up with ways to handle this and ways to handle that. Haven't anyone come up with that answer yet? But we got to keep trying, plugging, praying, doing all we can do to make the schools, our community. And I like what I've actually heard, because I've heard a lot about community. How this is the community problem. It's a community problem. It's a state problem. It's a world problem right now. And we have to come up. We need, if any of you have any suggestions or anything that you can bring to us, please, please. I understand what you're saying there, but this is a continuous problem. And it didn't just start last year, year before that, or 10 years ago. So it's going to take all of us to combat these problems. And we're going to have to stand side by side, shoulder to shoulder, and come up with some type of answers. Because people long before us, they didn't have the answers. And we are still battling, trying to get these answers and come up with maybe different ways of doing things, maybe different, I don't know. People's hearts are so different now. They're different. And we can't change a heart. We can't change a heart.
We don't need to try. We need to do it.
Well, that's right. So I appreciate all of you. Thank you so much. Thank you. This board has, I'm gonna leave it at that. Okay, so y'all, thank you. If anyone wants to stay, they may. If y'all want to take a second to exit, that's fine too. I'll give you, a minute or two to exit because it's a long evening. If you want to exit, you can now. Or if you have any paperwork that you had that you want to leave that we can review, please leave it. That's what I want from you. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bagby. Okay. Nothing else to be said. Public input is now closed. All right. Next, we have board member committee reports. Ms. Socha.
The regional STED meeting at the end of January. And a draft budget was proposed. And at this time, it would appear that there will be no tuition increase. for
Okay.
that. We toured school, one of the schools, couple of classrooms at the school, and the things those teachers do is very inspiring. We have several new members on this board, which I think is very encouraging. Last week I attended the Bridging Communities meeting. Dr. Ellis is the fire.
Somebody please close the door in the back.
Dr. Ellis is a fireball. She loves this program, extremely dedicated to it. She gave us
by division where our students are interning. And we have students at Ryman's, we have Windsor Mead, which is clinical, the nursing. We have students in marinas, pharmacies, James River and Tappahannock, just all over, Fridays in Glens. And I had been the week before and toured the school. It was fun to see the students and at work and loving it, actually. There is a golf tournament to raise some money for the programs there. That's May 19th. If we have any golfers, anyone who wants to participate or just go and visit, I have information that I'm happy to pass on.
Burnett?
And Mrs.
Oh.
Murray's son, Ms. Murray, can you tell us something about his project and his competition?
From the little bit of information my son has given me about this, because I actually had to find out from another parent that this had taken place, because he's so full of information to me. He is in the diesel mechanic program at Bridging Communities, and he the events that he did, this is for Skills USA. This is the group that Mr. Glenn took to the Skills USA. It was a district tournament, and some of the things he had to do, and they were all timed. I believe there was a timed test, but there was also he had to take breaks off of a piece of equipment and assemble the brakes again. And again, all of these things were timed, but it's things that he's learning in the class. And so
First place.
first place.
Very good.
First place.
Yes. He could certainly tell you more about what he did, but he's really enjoying the opportunity, and I'm so glad that they have this opportunity available to them.
Dr. Burnett?
We have a board meeting of the Chesapeake Bay Governor's School on Thursday to hear the second reading of the budget. And Dr. Seitz, if you have any words of wisdom for me about that, I'd be most appreciative. As far as the Middlesex Foundation is concerned, we met a new member at our meeting last week, Lorna Fraser Lindsay, who has about 30 years of experience in nonprofit administration. And I think, or at least we're hoping, that she will assume the chair of the foundation. I think our main goal right now is to find out from Bay Aging where the affordable housing project is and kind of keep tabs on that, but more to follow.
Okay.
Yeah, we met with the Budget Finance Committee, met with the county supervisors, had a very good meeting. It was a very positive meeting. I think we're going to see some good things come out of that in time. I'll bring you more up to date as I know more, but at this point, things are looking good for the future of our schools and possibly the future of the high school.
Okay. And as far as myself, there are some legislative things that are coming up. Need to meet with Mr. Keith Hodges, and there's some new bills that are coming down the pipe that want to have some discussion on. They're very, very lengthy, and I wouldn't dare go into all of that this evening, but I'm going to meet with Mr. Keith Hodges, and I can schedule a meeting with Mr. Keith Hodges, and we'll talk about these things that will be coming down through legislation, more things that we have to adhere to, and all of this type of stuff. So that will be, as we go along, that stuff will be coming out. Okay? All right. Next we have is the consent agenda.
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Moving properly second, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion so carried. Okay. Action items here, we have appropriation requests. Dr. Syke.
Yep, just one, and that is on page 32. And that is, we received the third round of funding from the USDA, and that is to help address supply chain challenges in our nutrition department. The money specifically has to be spent, when it's spent on food, it has to be to purchase unprocessed or minimally processed domestic foods.
Okay.
But it's to help with, some items that have been a little bit more difficult to get a hold of. That's the only appropriation request.
All right, and I have a motion on that.
So moved.
Second.
Moving properly second, in question. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion is so carried. All right, 2023-2024 school calendar, Dr. Sykes.
Yes, and that is located on page 35 in your packet. It is a 177-day calendar, which is what we are currently operating under. It is the 4th year with a pre-Labor Day start. Went over the calendar last month when I was here. We've made a couple of changes that I'll note what they are, and that's based on the feedback we received both in survey and in meetings. The first one is moving the January 29th workday to January 3rd. There were a lot of requests from faculty to move that earlier before the semester ends, and the semester does end on January 12th. And so what that looks like is the winter break would start December 20th, run through January 2nd for students, and then the 3rd, staff would come back for a work day. And then the other two changes are we added 2 early release days in the calendar, and that's to provide early release days for students. And that would provide both work and or professional time for teachers. And those are on October 18th and February 16th. And these went through both our administrative team and the superintendent's advisory in our last meeting. So I'll bring you this calendar for approval for the 23-24 school year.
I move we accept the calendar for the 23-24 school year.
A second.
Moving properly second, any question? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion is so carried. Okay. And, information items on instruction report, Dr. Bishop.
Just a few things. We have finished winter testing with MAP assessments in our benchmarks for math. Teachers are meeting in the professional learning communities to discuss the progress of our students, as well as making a plan for each and every student. These data meetings at the elementary and middle school are critical to identify the students and what the student needs to progress. And at the high school, they're working towards plans for graduation for the students and making sure that they are progressing as well. We're also working on processes for next year, which include the implementation of our unified talent. And this provides 3 important tools. It provides the ability for teachers and administrators to track their professional development, the ability to offer professional development to our teachers and admin and track that, and the ability for administrators to use observations and able to analyze those across the school and across the division and seeing where we need, where the needs are for our professional development.
All right, next, school safety.
And actually Dr. Bishop and I are gonna cover this one together, and this was in response to some questions we had gotten. We thought it was important to share some of the things involved in what we work on safety and security planning wise. Tonight, I'll kind of kick it off with just mentioning some of the things that we do have in place, which are threat assessments, which is what we're going to focus on tonight. Dr. Bishop's going to share some more information on that. Our emergency prepared training, we work with the local EMS on that. Several emergency drills throughout the year, suicide prevention, a crisis management plan, which includes crisis management teams in all of the schools, truancy prevention, which that's worked on with both in the schools and through our central office or our school social worker, which can lead to student and family supports both within the division and outside of the division, and determining what other wraparound resources, whether that's through Department of Social Services, Community Services Board, counseling centers and such. We do conduct a school safety audit that's conducted by the state every year, and we get that feedback. We use that and we're planning our crisis management plan. And then our schools also participate in some more formal positive behavior intervention plans. So that those are a variety of the things we do. Like I said, this evening, we want to focus a little bit more on threat assessments and those processes.
Yeah, we have a threat assessment team, both at the division level and at the school-based level. And we work together in tandem, along with different parties, psychologists, school social worker, the director of special education, myself, school counselors, assistant principals. We all work together to support this process. What initiates that school-based process is that threat impacts a student or staff at school, and that is aimed at the student or staff who is or will be at school. It's made on school grounds, on school devices. That threat can be initiated on a Chromebook. If it's a Chromebook, is our Chromebook at home, that would be considered a threat that our schools will take care of in our threat assessment process. Doesn't mean that we don't work with school and law enforcement for other threats outside of school as well. Directed at the school or during the school, that threat is made to occur on school grounds. And initiated, a lot of those threats are initiated during school hours. So any threat on campus, whether it is any kind of threat. So what happens in that threat assessment process? Can you go to the next slide, Tracy?
So how do we know if it's made on our device?
We have, we can look up that, we have it. We have anything that any keystroke on our device is monitored through our Google apps. So that is where, so a student could have opened up a Google Doc and made a thread on that Google Doc. If that is on our device, on our system, then that would be something that we would initiate our threat assessment process.
So do you have to go and find it, or is it pinged? Does it go to someone in our system?
Right now, there are threat levels, and it is pinged through a product called Bark.
So
that
if
does.
something were made, you would know, how quickly would you know about it?
It would be notified immediately. And there's different levels and different ways to look at that. You would notify immediately, and the assistant principal and the principal, Mr. Dunkel, would know about that. And then there's also see something, say something, which is on all of our websites, on our webpage, on our front page. So that's an anonymous reporting that goes to Mr. Dunkel. It goes to myself, and also goes to the administrators of the building. So I get notified of those immediately. So if a parent, community member, a student says this is happening, we take all of those threats seriously. When I'm looking at that screening process, when I say no threat, that doesn't mean that threat wasn't. We take every threat seriously, but sometimes that threat does not rise to the level where it is a direct threat towards somebody. If it's transient threat, that's those two levels of that threat assessment process. That is through the school counselor and through the assistant principal. And we have a screener form that's that uses the same criteria as the Dewey system from UVA, Dewey Cornell. We use that, and that is basically counselor will sit down with that report look at that report, interview the student, interview the witnesses, think about this. And then that counselor does not make that decision by themselves or herself, or they say, this is what I'm thinking that this is not a threat, but any threat is reported to the person who's made that threat. And there are disciplinary consequences. There are social emotional supports for the victim, and then there are also social emotional supports for the perpetrator to make sure that they understand that this is considered substantial. So that's where that process is. That's that screening form. As soon as that screening form is created and it's a non-threat or a transient threat, that is still reported to the school resource officer in terms of a report. And it's not a report for a call for service where it's in their records, but it is, we acknowledge that any threat should be disclosed, and we work as a team. The second part is like a moderate or substantive, and that goes to a complete threat assessment team process where the school psychologist, the social worker, all come to the school. They work with this assistant principal or the principal, and a team comes together, and it is much more in depth in terms of that process to really capture what needs to be done in that situation. And it could be anything from discipline. It could be anything from report to the school resource officer or things like that.
So at what point would it rise to the level that the sheriff's department would become involved, or the state police?
Moderate or substantial threat, they would know. Any threat, from a non-threat to a substantive, the school resource officer is aware. When you get to a moderate and substantive, that is also reported to the school resource officers, and they take that part and they have their system in place for what they do with that threat, and we have our system in place for what we do with that threat.
Dr. Bishop, do you know what the school resource officer's process is? Could you describe that?
Well, they are on our team. They're on our threat assessment team.
But you give the threat and the information you have about the threat to the school resource officer, correct?
Yes, we do.
And then what happens to it?
At a moderate or substantive threat, that goes to, that could be a call for service, which means that was reported, and it could be also a criminal or something to that effect.
Yeah,
So
they'll make the determination then on the legal side.
The SRO does?
we don't
Yeah,
make
so
that
we
determination.
not make the legal decision. We would make a decision based on the school side and our code of conduct.
Right.
The sheriff's department then would have to make a decision on the legal side of things, on whether it was at the level that it required charges to be brought. And they've gone through that process sometimes.
Now, as far as the disciplinary process is concerned, is that strictly a confidential process?
It is confidential. The perpetrator, the person who created, that is definitely, they know what, obviously, we bring
Well,
their
yes,
parents
but,
in.
Once the decision is made to take some disciplinary action, is that public knowledge?
The victim does not know. The victim, the parents, it's not public knowledge.
So
No.
only the perpetrator would know.
Yes.
The parents of the victim or the victim wouldn't know.
Would not know.
What the
The
consequence.
only thing that we would say is that we have handled the situation. We have discussed that. We have taken all actions within our protocol that would about this specific threat. So again, that screening process is really critical, and all three schools have been trained in that screening process.
Right.
So
I'm interested in, the victim will never really know what action has
No.
been taken. Why is that?
because that's student record.
Yeah, and that's a part of
It's a
FERPA.
FERPA.
It's Privacy Act that we can't release.
So
any
it's a
of that
legal.
information.
It's
reason.
legal.
And that's federal.
We're not permitted to.
We are not permitted.
Yeah, and that's following federal laws.
And that's the hardest, that is a difficult part for an administrator. Not to say this is what we've done, and I mean, that is something that they can only say, so much.
Well, as I sit and listen, my whole problem with it is, it's one word that keeps coming up throughout all of this. A threat is a threat. Any way you look at it, a threat is a threat. And by the time it goes through all of the ins and outs and the ups and downs, and everybody's trying to figure out this threat, which is still a threat.
Yep.
That it's watered down. And it's kind of like, okay, well, we can only do this much, but we can only do this much here, and the sheriff department has to do this. And whatever the sheriff department do, that's what they do. But it's kind of like it's here when it starts, and then it starts and it just feathers out and it feathers out, and nothing happens because it gets feathered out so far until nobody really knows what to do, because you got one responsible for something over here, you got somebody responsible for something over here. Well, if that be the case, if this is still a threat is a threat, then it need to be handled as a threat. And if we can just stop watering it down and take it for what it is.
So, yeah, I could talk a little bit about the school, well, I can't speak about the sheriff department side, but the law enforcement side of it. I can tell you that once it comes into the building, that's when the administration starts an investigation, which can take, sometimes that can be pretty quick, sometimes it can take a very long time. Interviewing students, getting verbal statements, getting written statements. We have lots of video cameras in all of our buildings, and don't record voice, but only records video. And then on their buses, we can record both video and audio. And so sometimes it's a matter of pulling tape like that to see what the actions were. If it's in the school, like I said, on the bus, we can get audio recording and use that at times too. So we're capturing that and clipping that. Sometimes it can take all day long to get statements from students who were involved in something or saw something or heard something. And that then comes back to, and I will use the term evidence, which is still considered a legal term, but we consider that's all the data that's gathered on the administrator side of things. And then that's once they have collected that information, they make a decision on what has taken place within the school division and make a disciplinary consequence decision if that's what needs to happen. And that's in a variety of levels. So it's not watered down because the investigation takes all day. But it could start at 8 o'clock in the morning, and by 3 o'clock in the afternoon, you've spoken to all of the parties involved. And this is the amount of evidence that's been determined. And sometimes you can very clearly say it's this or it's not this. Sometimes there's still not maybe 100% evidence to show something, and they have to make a decision then based on the evidence that they have. We can't speak on what the sheriff department then does separately on their own. We're looking at school discipline and code of conduct. The sheriff department is looking at criminal acts. We're looking at school discipline that occurred at school or was directed at school. The sheriff department can look at it. Certainly crimes can be committed in school, but they're also looking at things on the outside of school. And so again, that process on our end might take all day. It might take 8 hours, or there's still follow-up because you need to speak to a certain student or teacher, and maybe they're not present at the time, and you still need to collect that. But it does come to a close.
Mystery, I think in a way, it seems watered down because I think that one person may be interviewing these 3 students. The psychologist might be interviewing this person. The school resource officer might be going to the home. There might be a lot of different parts, but the entire process itself comes back to a very research-based form from Dewey Cornell from the UVA, which we use, that really every single thing is accounted for in this form. And it's really kind of our making sure that every dot and every T is, every dot is every I is dotted and every T is crossed in that process.
Dr. Bishop, is it fair to say that the amount of evidence that you collect in any one case determines the level of the threat that we see over on the screen?
No, I don't think that the amount of evidence, because it could be very, it could be just a piece of video. It could be, 3 witnesses that say, this is what this child did. And we've corroborated that. And that becomes enough.
It's the significance of the evidence.
Yes.
Yeah, I guess, yeah, and that's kind of why the threat assessment it protects, we do have to protect everybody in this process.
And if it's determined at the end of that investigation, if it's anything against our code of conduct, which can be very minimal, then that's recorded in our student information system. And it's recorded, what it was, what time it occurred, where it occurred, if there's a victim, that's noted, and all of that's collected within our system, which gets reported to the state. And so the students aren't identified once it gets reported to the state, but it does get reported to the state. And it's also a way for us to track student behavior and determine if there are patterns in behavior that we need to be looking for.
Right.
What's not communicated is an investigation is being conducted. Probably on any given day, there's some sort of investigation that's taken place. It could be a minor, something very minor, into something that's much more elevated. That's not communicated out. As we share decisions, are not communicated out, especially specific information related to students are not and cannot be communicated out.
So, Dr. Seiss, since what I've heard tonight, it would lead me to believe that there is confusion or lack of understanding of what the sheriff's office does and what we do. And I think we've heard here a pretty good description of what we can do and what we do with the evidence that we collect. Could we invite the sheriff to come to our March meeting and answer questions, or at least discuss what they do and how they do it once the SRO gets information about the threat and how that process unfolds?
Yes, I will reach out to my contact there and make sure that date is available and let them know what we would like them to share in the partnership.
Thank you.
And as these threats come about, I think what people are looking for is when the threat comes about, that person is taken out of the equation automatically. They are removed from the schools till all of the processing and investigations and everything has gone on and it's been pretty much figured out. But the problem is the persons are still in the school system, which is still threatening the individual that he or she threatened. And that's where a lot of the confusion is.
Well, part of the problem there is you've got to prove it's a threat. You can't just accept someone say, well, she threatened me.
No,
You
I
can't
understand.
do
You have to
that.
have proof. Yes, you have to have proof.
So you got to go through somewhat of a process to know the right answer. Yes, it wasn't truly a threat. Then you can move forward with possibly removing the student. But until you can prove that, you can't do that. You can't just jerk the kid out of school because somebody said that they threatened them.
But we can't we,
Nope.
Dr. Bishop?
Well, I could speak a little bit about that too. And so when something is reported to administration, immediately they're processing to determine, do I hear it as a threat right now?
Right.
Certainly there's a process that they have to go through. And then their next course of action would be to go to the student that has been reported as saying we're doing something. They remove that student. from
They remove
class.
that student.
That student comes out of class. Now
Class
that student may be located to the office. It may be located to the guidance office. It may be located to the ISS or FAR room, or it may be the student may be located to a separate location. And then a decision may be made that the student needs to go home. And so if they're investigating a threat or what sounds immediately like a threat on the first call in,
That's right.
the student's removed.
There's no
Immediate-
consequence given to that student, but
Right,
that student is
because they have to
removed.
investigate it. They have
Yes.
to investigate the situation. I've called principals and they have immediately pulled kids out of class. They have pulled kids off of buses
Mhm.
to investigate when I say, I just got a phone call that said blank,
When would that not occur?
that they would not remove a student from, because if it's not a threat, they're not going to automatically remove a student from a classroom.
But we got a report tonight that there was a threat, at least a perceived threat. But the student who made the threat remained in classes, I guess.
So I can only speak in general terms
know.
of students are removed from classrooms in buses when that report came in.
Right.
All right. Continue.
So, yeah, those are identified, it goes to that process, which I've kind of explained a little bit with reporting to the sheriff's office as well. And then the response, it could be a disciplinary response, knowing that school administrator can only suspend a child for up to 10 days. At that point in time, it's recommended for a long-term suspension. And that would be to the disciplinary hearing officer, which is me, where that would go through another series of reports and with the parents and to make a final determination, which is my recommendation to the superintendent. And that's that kind of response that we have. And that is,
Do you have more?
that's it.
Yeah, that's all.
Oops.
I mean, we have some work to do. We have some work to do and a lot of things that need to be looked at. Because, I mean, I still feel a threat is a threat and it has to be taken as a threat.
Mhm.
And we have to do our part to make sure that the student that has been threatened is safe.
Yep.
And taken care of.
Mhm.
And I know that is totally the intent of everybody here. To see that every student, every teacher in the school system is safe. But through all of the crap sometimes, sorry for a lack of words, things get out of sorts.
And that is some training too with teachers, that if they've heard something in class and they say, oh, well, it's not really a threat. That's not their determination to decide if it's a threat. It goes to the office, it gets reported and qualified. I mean, I'm trained, and our staff is able to basically diagnose that threat and make sure that it is not a threat, you know, a transient, a moderate, or a substantive threat. That's how serious we take it. We really do. We want it to be brought to our office as well as for the parents and
And
students.
they do act on it immediately and they're immediately looking for evidence.
You know, it's just,
And do teachers immediately report that, or is this something they may wait? and do the
We've,
next-
they are told to immediately report it, but it's always constant training. And, you know, that is something that I know that the principals continue to train and make sure that teachers are aware that the communication within the school is so important. Just like the communication with us in the sheriff's office.
Thank you.
all right. Any more questions? Budget presentation.
Presentation, but I am actually going to move and. Podium so I can look up. So I will first start off just with a reminder that we kicked off our strategic plan 23-29, charting our course. And just to remind everybody that all of our decisions, which include our budget, are based on our mission and vision and engaging, inspiring, and empowering our students. And we looked at our 4 key priorities or strategic objectives. And that's what really is the force that drives us, including the decisions we make in our budget when we are looking to supply our kids with deeper learning and a positive learning environment, when we're building the capacity of our school community members and participating and engaging our community. And so I'll start off by going over the variables that affect our budget, meaning where our income comes from. And so the first piece, the student enrollment or ADM, is what our state basic aid is based on. In our current budget, 23, we base that on 1,100 students. And we are up this year. We're at about 1,169 right now. And so looking ahead for the next fiscal year, being a little bit conservative, you never know exactly the number of kindergartners who are coming in, but we feel pretty confident that we'll have at least 1,150 students. And so we're basing our ADM on that. I will remind you that that is not actually the total number of students we have. That's what our funding is based on. It does not include our pre-K students, and it doesn't include our students who are in alternative day placement. So that's about 100 more students.
Remind me why our alternative day placements are not included.
I'm going to look to Karen. They have, because the schools that they go to are able to.
We don't have to. They're not counted in our, as part of our enrollment.
Okay,
Yeah, because the county actually funds
that's right.
it.
So what is an alternative day placement?
So that's like.
So it is our students with disabilities who need resources that we're unable to provide in this setting. And so we always aim for our students to be in the least restrictive environment, but there are times, just based on the nature of the disability and the students' needs and resources, that we partner with either we have a regional program in Gloucester that we participate with, and then we have students that get their needs met in alternative day placements. Good. So what also factors into our basic aid is the LCI, or the composite index. And just as a reminder, this is year 2 that it was re-benchmarked, and we're at a 0.6324, which means that about 63% of our budget does come from our locality and how we're funded there. I will go ahead and share right here. If you have listened to any of the news or reports about funding, is that there was an error that was discovered recently in the calculation tool. Not an error in the governor's budget, but an error in the calculation tool, which is what school divisions use to project their budgets for the year. The calc tool was put out in June of 2022, which is when the governor's budget was finalized. Unfortunately, there was an error in it, and there was an overestimation based on sales tax that was not discovered until very recently. So because it's a biennial budget, there's effects right now in fiscal year 23, and there's effects next year in FY 24. Right now, it does show that we would be less about $35,000 for our division. Because our enrollment is up, we based it on 1,100 and we're at 1,169. Overall, that would not hurt us, that $35,000. However, would be $35,000 less that Middlesex is due. We understand in the General Assembly, they are trying to correct that in some of their funding, and so that shouldn't be a deficit to us. We are hoping that they also correct it or make some adjustments to FY 24, because at that point, it does look like about $87,000 less that we were expecting when we first started to work on this budget. So we're waiting to see how that all flushes out. Federal funding is another source of funding for us. That's IDEA, which is dealing with our students with disabilities, and then all of our title funds, and then other funding. And so that when I asked Karen, I said, Karen, you explain to me exactly what other funding is? And she said, well, that's everything else that's not already funded. from either federal, state, or local. And so our E-rate, our grants, any tuition that we collect for non-resident students and such. So that's what our funding is made up of. We established our priorities a while ago. I've shared some of those with you already. And so when I speak of supporting and developing our staff, that has to do with compensation, benefits, professional development, and adding additional positions in FY24. Our programming deals not only with the day-to-day operations of our classrooms and meeting all of those needs, but making sure we continue to offer strong CTE programs and career readiness and workforce development. We were fortunate to add JROTC this past year when we went back to the Board of Supervisors and made that request. And so that, of course, is included in. We look at our literacy and numeracy and transition services and all of those other things that keep us functioning as a school. And then lastly, our operational efficiency and the safety of our learning environments and all of our buildings and athletic facilities, and that's to include our capital projects. And so when we look at the big overall, what are our budget considerations? And by that, I mean where we're spending or where we're seeing additions coming into our spending. Compensation, I'm going to address in the next few slides. Health insurance, if you remember, I came last month and told you that we are now looking at a 14.2% increase, possibly in our health insurance rates. We are hoping that that is a worst case scenario. Anthem is looking at maybe a 1% reduction overall for everyone. And then David Rowe, who we work with on that, has gone back to Anthem and is trying to work with them on at least giving us a transition year. If you remember last month, I explained that Anthem has changed the way that they determine what our rates are. And instead of looking back over a 12-month period, they now look back over a 24-month period, and claims that we were expecting to see drop off are now back on. And so he very much believes that we're entitled to a transition year, so we're not hurt so hard by that. So he's working on that. And then also, we just recently had conversations, or Karen and I were at the last Board of Supervisors meeting where David Rowe also presented there. He also represents the county and their health insurance plan. And there is interest in seeing if we can combine both the school division and the county into one plan. It would allow them to offer more plans to their employees. It could potentially help our rates. So once the enrollment rates are finalized for both the school division and for the county, he'll put those together and come back with a presentation to the county on what that does, what that looks like. And so we're hoping that the 14.2 is a worst case scenario. Positions. I mentioned these last time also. Dean of Students at the elementary school, that's to provide both administrative support, but more importantly, teacher and student support. We're seeing that as an urgent need and position at the elementary school. Special education teacher at the high school, looking forward to the number of 8th grade students with disabilities who are transitioning to the high school, and even further looking at 6th and 7th grade, that number is a lot larger. The high school did lose a special education teacher a few years back when their numbers went down, and now the numbers, as we look forward, will be increasing. And so that provides support in both case management, but being able to extend their transition services, which they've done a great job this year at MHS, opening up those opportunities for students. Yes.
What are we seeing that may be a cause of these numbers going up?
I do not have an answer for that. Students who are found eligible as a student with a disability go through a pretty stringent evaluation process. And then every 3 years, there's a reevaluation. So it's not just if a student is entered into the program that they stay in it for the remainder of their school career. Every 3 years, that's evaluated. And sometimes the disability might still be there, but the student has learned enough strategies that they can overcome the impact in the classroom and they no longer need services. And so there is movement that way when we do find that students are no longer eligible. But I can't, just by looking at what the numbers are, speak to why I think that there's a larger number than there was a few years back with just this cohort of kids. The third position is athletic trainer, and by that I mean a full-time athletic trainer. That's one of our employees. If you remember, I had this in last year's budget. It was the final thing that got cut once we got the budget finalized. And so we contract with Pivot, and I think that they've changed their name or the company's been sold, and I do apologize, I don't remember the name now, but when we have them, it works really, really well. We contract with them for 25 to 30 hours. It's working our budget, it's working the schedule. But this is the second year in a row that once they have a larger need in a larger division or a college or somewhere else, the trainer gets pulled to meet those needs. And then we are left in Middlesex High School without having an athletic trainer when we need someone there all the time. And so they're just kind of filling in right now, which doesn't work for us. And so again, I bring that back to the table to be put into our budget as a full-time employee for us, as someone who would be dedicated only to us. I'm hoping that it makes it through. I don't know what the hiring would look like of that. I think it's a pretty demanding field right now, but we would certainly give it a shot if we can keep that in the budget so that we have someone here to help keep our students safe. So I've got 3 slides that look like this. I won't spend a tremendous amount on these slides, but it gives you a comparison of not all of our regional partners, but, and I call us partners because we work together, our school divisions do. But the ones that are nearest to us and similar in size does not include West Point. They are a little bit of an outlier when it comes to the salary scale. So I think a few years back, we were asked to remove them, although I think Ms. Murray will put them back in the future to compare their salary scale. So Cal, it might be running off, or you can see it better down here. We start at about 6th in rank of the 9 communities that we're looking at here, salary scale, and this is steps 0 through 10, so new teachers through their 10th year of teaching. At steps, let's see, steps 7 and 8, we move up to 4th, but then we move back down again. When we look at steps 11 through 20, we stay pretty consistently at about step 5. And as we move to the more experienced staff, we move down to 6. And again, that's ranked about 6 out of 9 in our region, with schools that are about the same size. Gloucester's a little bit bigger, but everybody else is about the same size as us. And so looking forward, everybody's looking at giving the same raises for next year. This slide gives you a look back of what we've done, scale adjustment over the past 5 years. You can see in FY19, we did do a 7% increase plus a step. That was the year of the Springstead study, which we were trying to get kind of back on level and where we were and trying to get competitive there. And then it's kind of varied depending on what the scenario was budget-wise. Last year, we did provide a 7% step increase, and last year, or 7% raise, which was equated to a 5% increase plus a step. The step is 1.3% for us. And we looked at it last year with the original governor's budget as a 10% salary increase over the biennium. Once the budget was finalized, once the governor's budget was finalized, which was in June, and we had already completed our budget, that's not actually what the final language looked like. The language looked like a 5% increase for FY23 and a 5% increase for FY24, which means if we don't give a 5% increase this year, we don't get to take advantage of the full compensation supplement. For whatever reason, the way a biennium budget works, or this one worked, is that the bulk of the compensation supplement comes back to divisions in the second year. And so we got 100 and something odd, and I'm really spitballing that one. Last year for the raise that we get as a supplement for the 7%, this year the full supplement is $354,000. But in order to take advantage of that, it's at least a 5% raise. If we only give 3, which is originally what we were thinking with that 10% over the biennium, we leave $140,000 on the table at the state level, which I don't think any of us want to do. Plus, when you take into effect inflation, 5% is not a significant amount anyway. And in fact, Both the House and Senate versions Senate just came out with their versions of the budget this week, and both are calling for a 7% salary increase. We don't know what that looks like in this budget, and so when I get to the numbers later on, what I'm showing you will show a 5%. We're waiting for their calc tools to come out, and we're expecting them any day this week to look at what the additional compensation supplement will look like coming back to us if we're looking at a 7% increase. Capital improvements, you see the high school's on there with a question mark. So every meeting I have the high school on there. Still lots to consider and discuss there. But the MES roof restoration, the roof is original to the building. And even though sometimes we think of MES as the newer school, we're in year 21 of that school being open also. And just for some investigation that was done on the roof, it does show that there's some moisture underneath some of the areas of it. And it is more cost efficient to begin a restoration now instead of having to do a complete roof replacement down the road. That is to the tune of $800,000. The LED lighting upgrades, we have those in the budget this current year for St. Clair Walker, and we're working with a contractor now to get that laid out in phases. And so the next piece is for the elementary school, which is in need of those upgrades also. And so where it's for an LED conversion. And so that is both energy savings and cost savings. Not to say that the high school doesn't need that, but we've been holding back on some of those things for the high school in anticipation of a renovation. And so I've also included across the bottom there the number of things that we've been able to fortunately take advantage of ESSER funds, various projects that were capital improvement projects that were neither added on to the capital project plan or were removed to a savings of about $1.5 million to the county. And those projects we were able to fund through ESSER grants. And so these numbers are, as I've shared, the House and Senate just came out with their version. We're waiting on calc tools. And of course, the final budget hasn't been adopted either. So keeping in mind that these numbers are not final, they are based on the governor's current budget. And so when I mentioned the funding sources at the beginning, the state funds look like they're up close to $500,000. And that, remember, I shared that our ADM will be higher next year. And so our basic aid is based on our ADM. This does not include I'm hoping that the $87,000 can go back in there, but it does not include what we originally thought would be state funding. We did pull that out after a corrected calc tool was given to us. And so that's what the state funds are based on. Federal funds are up. Remember, and I said that that's related to IDEA, which would be serving our students with disabilities and all of our federal title programs. Other funds, when I mentioned grants in that reduction right there is mostly specifically related to the fact that our River County's grant for Compass Academy does end this year. And that's been a $50,000 grant. And so you'll see that that's what looks like that amount of the reduction in the other funds. And so when you look at the orange highlighted areas, that is the local ask. And by local, I mean our Middlesex County Board of Supervisors. You'll see that that is at an increase of $893,515 or about 8%. The debt service is a little bit down, which you would expect that because you're paying on that as the year goes on. And so you can see what the total local funds are when you've removed, or with the debt being a little bit down, and what the overall general funds and increases are for FY24. And so again, these numbers in this budget includes an enrollment projected of 1150, minus the $87,000 that we are hoping comes back in there. It includes a 5% compensation increase, which is 3.7% raise and 1.3% step. It includes the worst case scenario of health insurance, which we are very much hoping and somewhat expecting that that's going to be lower. It is the addition of all three of the positions that I just described to you. And all of our other naturally occurring expenses, fuels up, utilities up, subscriptions are up. When our number of students go up, the cost for subscriptions to many of the things also increases. So there are just naturally occurring, even if you didn't give a raise and you didn't add any positions, there's naturally occurring expenses that go up for the year.
If the outcome for the health insurance is favorable, will that reduce the local funds?
Yes. Yes. And so the way we did this is that we're absorbing all of that increase in the health insurance. So anything that it comes down, and that does fall all on our local funding source for that. So any rate that it comes down, then that comes down. And we also, I've shared it, and so did David Rowe, is that because that ask comes from us to the Board of Supervisors, it's beneficial to look at, can we combine and make the rate more attractive for our employees? We have a larger number of employees. And so it kind of shakes out. It's all coming from one funding source anyway. It's either we do it at that time and can get a better rate for our employees and we're asking for a little bit less. Or if we keep them separate, we have to ask for a little bit more, but that's all local. And so that is the presentation. I'm happy to answer any other questions or take any other feedback. It is bare bones. And so it's a short, there's no fluff in there.
I believe that. Okay.
I should mention that it's a short session. We're expecting that to end by February 25th, hoping to have a final budget at that time and a new calculation tool.
Has for the JROTC, has that fee increased and it was still 3,000?
They've not told me that it's increasing, so we're going with 3,000.
Okay.
And certainly by now, I think they would have shared that with us because we know what all of our other regional partners, whether they are staying the same or increasing at all.
One other question is, does this include money for the Chesapeake Bay Governor School? And are we assuming an increase in the number of students?
We are budgeted for 17, which is down from 19 for Governor School, and it does include that.
And we already know that there are 17 students who have been selected.
Well, they haven't been, the next class hasn't been selected yet, but we start working on that when they are 8th graders. And so we're forecasting ahead on the number of seats that we'll need that way. And we commit to those slots. I think we commit 2 years ahead of time.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Next, we have public comment. The floor is now open again for public comment. Anyone has anything they want to say?
It's me again, and I don't have it in writing this time. My name is Dawn, and I live in Urbana. I had shared something with Dr. Saunders earlier. And hearing a couple of the people talk about having speakers come, that is one thing in my conversation with her that we discussed. I have emailed the link to everybody with Mr. Harrow. So if somebody could please share it with Mr. Harrow. It is somebody standing on the stage with a group of students, with a gentleman standing there with a student and telling her to keep coming at him and keep coming at him. And she is coming at him and he very nicely deals with it or comes back at her. But by the end of it, she has no more left to say. He won. She was the bully. He was being bullied and he won. I think it would bring you a long way. I think if you did have just a community forum as suggested before this night, I think a lot of people would have felt a little more comfortable. This was a lot for Melanie to deal with tonight, especially after she said there was another incident. So I think we need to come together sooner than later to get this de-escalated as soon as possible. Thank you.
Okay. Public input is now closed. All right, any old business? Any new? All right, can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Adjourn, or do you want to, what do we do?
That would be,
That's
that would be a
Wednesday.
recess.
Yeah, that's right. Do we want to recess, or should we log in adjourn?
Okay, so what's being asked?
Wednesday is the work session.
Mhm. Yeah, we can go ahead and recess. We can do whatever we said.
I rescind my
Okay,
original statement.
okay, can I have it, a motion as a recess? Okay,
Until Wednesday at 4:30.
we are now in recess till Wednesday at 4:30.
Wednesday at 4:30 at the high school in the media center.
Right.
All right.